Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to address one of the most highly requested videos here on the channel, and the star of that show is distance drivers. Now let's go toss some plastic. Now throughout this video, we are going to touch on a handful of different points in regards to gaining more distance, getting a little more consistency, and working on your form. Now remember, these are just my personal takeaways and my personal tips to share with you guys. They are probably not going to line up with all the other tutorials out there, but I will do my best to share my thoughts with you guys. Now the first step and the most important step on your journey of improving your distance is understanding the flight numbers. I'm not going to go down and explain all of that right here. I will pop a video up. I have done a video on this in the past. And as a lot of you guys know, form is the most important thing about gaining distance off the tee pad. So for the next thing that I want you to do, and what I tell a lot of people that I tutor and help get into the sport, is in the beginning, or even if you've been playing for a while but you really want to reset your current form, we are going to completely take out the run-up. In my personal opinion, when you're really trying to push the distance driver, the run-up is the least important part. When you implement the run-up, you are adding a lot more moving parts. In doing so, it makes it really easy to take away from the core components of your form. So now that we got that out of the way, let's step on the tee pad. Now the first thing that I want you to do is place your foot at the front of the tee pad, keep both of your legs in line and in the direction of where you want to throw. Yes, as your game improves, you will take different angles on how you approach the tee pad, but that is for a different video. Now this is where you really want to pay attention because we're getting into the most important part. The number one thing that you want to do is keep your disc flat. The way that I always envisioned it when I was starting was if you were standing next to a bar top that's about chest level and you were setting your disc on the top of it and you just want to slide it across. We all know how it is when you first start. Everything you throw is a big hyzer. Similar to baseball, you're trying to dip your hips and go for the home run. It's the same thing in disc golf. People dip down, throw up, but when you do that, you are essentially taking all of your distance out of the equation. So now that we got our body perfectly in line, we know that we need to keep our disc nice and level. The next thing that we are going to focus on is the reach back. And the reach back is the biggest reason why I tell people to go stand still for a couple weeks or as long as you want to, because when you incorporate that messy run up, that's when you usually sacrifice your reach back. It's really easy to only reach back a little bit in that run up. And guys, the reach back is the most important part, in my opinion, to adding distance. The farther that you can reach back, the more comfortable you are reaching back, the more torque and the more time your body has to generate all that power to wing that disc down the fairway. So now that we have our body lined up with our fairway, we know that we need to keep our disc nice and flat. We are really focusing on that reach back. The next step in this process is keeping the disc close to you as you pull through. You want to come as close to your chest as possible. And when you hit right here, this is what a lot of players call the power pocket. You want to create a triangle with your arm, keep it nice and close so that your core can really engage in the throw, nice and straight, and let it fly. And here's another camera angle for you guys. Really focus on that reach back, come through, create this triangle, the power pocket, engage your core, and then fire away. Now the next little thing that I want you guys to implement into your form can add a ton of distance, but again, I recommend that you guys are still locked in at a standstill. This next little tip is going to be increasing that reach back distance. This is going to have a huge result for you. It's going to feel uncomfortable. This one is going to take a little bit to get used to. So now that we're comfortable with all the other steps leading up to this, we are engaging our reach back. The next thing I want you guys to do, and this is where it's going to get tricky, is we're going to turn our head 180 degrees and we're actually going to look behind us. Now the takeaway from this is not the fact that we're just turning our head 180 degrees, but what it opens up for our bodies when we do so. So while continuing to try to face the fairway, this is as far back as my reach back can go. And what I want you guys to focus on is my shoulder and my core. The second I bring my head that 180 degrees, you can see that opened up another 5-6 inches of reach back. My shoulder's cocked back a lot farther now, and just that little bit of distance allows your arm to gain a lot more speed as you fire through. A missed throw that I occasionally have is I actually come through and I'm trying to keep it so close that I will hit my own rib cage. It does hurt a little bit. It usually results in a bad throw, but at least I know that my form is nice and tight. So now when we take everything that we've talked about up until this point, you should get a result that looks like this. Not bad at all. Now at this point, I know what you're all thinking, Hunter, now that we're past all the boring stuff, can we please focus on that run up and apps? I've been looking for that hammer. Frickin' Jaguar, jeez. Now, as we start to incorporate the run-up, how you start it, your position is completely unique to yourself. But the last 3 or 4 steps are when everybody's form kind of falls in line. Now, when I'm stepping up for a max distance drive, I generally stand about 4 to 5 feet behind the tee pad. I keep my shoulders and my feet in line in the direction that I'm throwing. Or you can take the James Conrad approach. Now, his preferred starting point is about 60 to 80 feet behind the tee pad. But hey, you know what? It works, and it works very well for him. Now, throughout this process of when you're really winding up to let one rip, you want the disc to move as little as possible. You want to bend your body around the disc. Now, keep in mind this has all been aimed at right-handed, backhanded players, which is most of us out there. But if you are a complete weirdo and you're a lefty, just reverse it. Now, the first thing that you're gonna do is lead with your dominant foot, and you're gonna bring the disc out with it. So you're gonna have your first step, and now from here, we're dancing around the disc. You're gonna follow through with your left. A lot of people call this the X step. So again, we're gonna lead with that dominant foot. As we swing through on our X step, we should be passing our disc. Remember guys, the disc is stationary, we're moving around the disc. So we're gonna lead with that power foot, come through with that X foot, and then as we take our final step with that dominant leg, we should be completely locked back in the reach back. Our feet are gonna be a little bit staggered at this point, and as soon as that dominant foot lands, that's when we're gonna fire through. Now, usually when my drives are off, the first thing that I always turn to is that last plant foot. I have a habit of starting my fire through before this foot hits the ground. It's very easy to do, and it's gonna throw your whole drive out of whack. So what that will look like is I will come through here, and as this foot is still floating, I get too antsy and I start the pull through. You're not gonna have any of the torque, you're not gonna have any of that weight shift from your X step to your plant foot. If you look at any pro, it's all universal, guys. You have to get that plant foot down, transfer that energy, and then fire through. And that wraps up today's video in regards to those distance drivers. Now, if you guys found any of this information helpful, please take a second, hit that subscribe button. It would mean a lot to me. Now, a few little tips that I'm gonna throw your guys' way. I'm not gonna get in depth with them at all, but generally, if you have a headwind, go with a more stable disc. If you have a tailwind, go with a less stable disc. And if you are new to the sport, guys, I could not stress it enough. Make sure you go watch that flight number video, because if you have a destroyer in your hand, I'm gonna promise you that's not your farthest thrower. I would recommend that you start with some flippy fairway drivers, or maybe even a mid-range. A lot of people don't understand when you start, you'll probably be able to throw your mid-range farther than your overstable distance driver. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Now it's your turn to go toss some plastic.